Hello, my name is George Bina. I'm from Syncrosoft, the company that develops Oxygen. As I said earlier, we have here, we are 6 people from Syncrosoft here. 3 of them are working on the authoring part and 2 on the development part of Oxygen. Today I will talk about XML authoring on mobile devices. And I hope to also be able to show you something, right? That's why we made all this setup. So first, a few words about mobile devices. They are continuously increasing. Probably every one of you has already maybe more than one mobile device that you are using, right? Like your smartphone, maybe a tablet. And in some cases, such a device may be the only way you can access information. We had an email recently on our support from someone asking if they can use Oxygen on an iPad, for instance, because they had someone with disabilities and he was able to use only an iPad. Initially, when I got my first tablet, I used that only for games. But in time, people start to use tablets also to do some work, not only for playing. So I think that it has to be a trend from play to work also on these devices. And also, the other days on my Twitter stream, one of the tweets pointed to an article on New York Times called Wikipedia versus the small screen. And there are some codes there. And I found interesting that also Wikipedia already considered providing an editing interface for mobile devices. There was another tweet, I think, that mentioned that in 2013 there were 1 billion devices sold, smartphones. So it's not, a market that you can ignore. And I didn't want to have Oxygen the second that will provide a solution in this space. So we started to look also what we can do in this space. For XML publishing, the output that you get from XML, a few years ago there were not so many mobile-friendly output formats. From Dita or Dagbook and so on. But now you can obtain different book formats like EPUB or Kindle format from Dita. So you can have that on your mobile device. And there are also on this website, mobiledita.com, there are a number of different web help outputs that are specially formatted to work on mobile devices. Now, there is some concern that you will not be able to edit XML on a phone, right? But there are, when you work with XML, there are more than raw editing. And one workflow that we've seen is the kind of traditional review process that works also with digital documents when they have XML and they convert that to PDF. And this is done in big companies and they lose a lot of time with this. So they convert XML to PDF. There may be multiple XML files that result in one PDF. They send that out to reviewers, to people that will look and annotate on that PDF document, and in general they can only add comments about what's wrong on that document. The annotated PDF comes back and they align that, putting it side by side with a number of XML documents. And then they try to update, based on those comments, the information that they have in the XML documents. So there are a lot of manual steps, a lot of steps where you can introduce errors and so on. And this can be replaced with a direct XML review process where you have the XML files and you can annotate directly those XML files with comments, but not only with comments, but you can also propose changes to the documents using track changes markup, for instance. And then when the document comes back with the feedback from the reviewers, then all you have to do is to accept, reject changes, or if there is a comment, it's presented exactly on that part of the document. You don't need to align that with the document. I discussed with one company that used the PDF kind of review process, and they said it's a nightmare to identify which file, which XML file some part of the PDF refers to. Another use case that I've seen is that some companies need to get initial data. They have an XML-based process, but then they get initial data in Word, for instance, and then they run a conversion process, and then probably that, in some cases, is not 100% correct, and then you need to have a manual fix-up. So that's another point where you can bring in an XML interface to collect initial data from people directly in XML and bring that in an XML system. And probably you've seen during the demo jam, Alex presented some interfaces to XML documents that allow this kind of usage. So these problems can be already solved on the desktop right now. Not only Oxygen, but all the other XML editors provide change tracking, annotations, so that you can, bring that to users in some way and get their feedback. So what we wanted to investigate is how we can have this available also on mobile devices, and also the full XML editing support, maybe, if possible. XML authoring, let's say, because we target right now only this visual part, not necessarily the raw source editing. So let me try some magic number. We had some issues with the network here. We have a local network, but let's hope everything works and you will be able to see something interesting. So let me see. So we have this camera that shows the two devices, the iPad and the Oxygen. And the magic part means that we need to get this document, that this is a dogbook document, because we have also norm here, so I choose dogbook, not other type of document. So this is kind of a dogbook document that is rendered in Oxygen, and you have the track changes, comments, and so on. So let's try to get this on the iPad. And now is the magic part where we should be able to move. Let's see if we get it working on the iPad. Not all devices are, we also have an Android. I also have an Android phone. So this phone here, I hope you see it. and now we have the document on the phone. Right? So you can also see it here. It's the same document with the, oh, sorry. The difficult part, for instance, is the row spans for tables that are, the table layout is also here, right? So let's put it back on the iPad. Okay. We have it back on the iPad. So now, let's hope that the server connection works, because this is not a standalone application. It's a server-based application. And here you have, oh, sorry, let me switch to the iPad. Okay, so you can see now the iPad. So this is the dogbook document that we had. And we can see different highlights here. If I press on such a highlight, I don't know if you can see the comment down here, and I have this, can I have a pointer, maybe? No? So there are some arrows down there where that you can use to move between the comments, and here is a remove button in case you want to remove some comment. So let's say we remove this comment and it's gone. If I have a change, like this, then the actions here says accept, reject, right? So I can accept or reject the change. If I want to add a new comment, I can select something here, and I say add comment, and then I can add a comment about, this should be changed, for instance, should be rephrased or whatever. Okay? Okay, so now my comment is highlighted here, and the comment appears here when you look at it. But I was not very happy with this interface, so I said, what about if we swipe right? Why should not be able to see the comments here? And then you can browse through the comments and changes. And we made the video demonstration out of this, and it was like select here and accept or reject at the bottom. But what about if you swipe on such a change? Then you get the accept or reject actions directly on the interface. So let's accept this change, accept the other change. Okay. So basically this allows people to review dogbook documents directly on the iPad. Now let's switch to the edit mode. So when I'm in the edit mode, I get the keyboard and I can add content here, right? I can remove content from the document. And let's see what else we can do. So if you swipe, you get this content completion and rename element actions here. For instance, if I say rename element, then I can select a program listing. So I can type to filter the available options, and then we can say a program listing here. And the paragraph here is changed, and you can see also this in the formatting is changed to a program listing. Let's undo this change. And if I want to enter free markup, then I can type here. Yeah, and sometimes I will get also to this. So you can select an element and you have the acronym element entered, and then you can type something there. I can also turn track changes on. Okay. And let's say we save the document now, and maybe we should move back to my laptop. And the document is here, the modified content is here, right, in Oxygen. So how does this all work? We had to choose between different technologies that are available to build applications on mobile devices. One of the choice was, shall we make a native application or a web application? And of course, Oxygen being Java-based, we already had the experience that it's great to have an application that you can use on different devices, different operating systems, and so on. Plus, a native application limit you to distribute that only through an app store, while a web application is available directly to users. Also, having a web application allows you to send a URL to someone and they just click a link and they have that document already in front of them, ready to be edited, reviewed, or whatever. So we decided to go for a web application instead of a native application. And we developed this with the mobile devices in mind first, and then we test to make sure that it works also on desktop or other things. Any other device. We wanted to reuse existing technology that we already had for XML authoring, because otherwise I think it will be a huge effort to build everything in again, you know. And another thing that we considered was that client-side versus server-side processing, how much you put on the client, how much you put on the server side. Because if I will use such an application to work with XML, I don't want to wonder all the time, will my battery drain up? Shall I stop? You know, I want people not to worry about this. So what we've done was to put Oxygen on the server side and just push the visual rendering of the document to the client. So most of the processing is done basically now on the server side, and the client just renders the XML document. For this, we tried a number of approaches, trying to render the XML directly inside the HTML page so we can reuse the CSS directly to style the content, the same CSS styles that we have. That does not work well because, as you probably know, HTML does not really allow you to put arbitrary tags inside, right? And it will mess with your XML markup, and you cannot really do that. Another option was to draw to this view on a canvas. So just as we do in Java, basically, we render the document using a graphics object that draws paints everything on the screen. We tried this approach as well, but then we were considering current issues and events and all that on the canvas, and we were thinking that is not what we really want to do. And the third approach, and what we decided to use, was to convert the XML to an HTML5 document using data dash attributes to store XML related information, and then convert also the CSS to match automatically to match this converted structure. So the document will be rendered in the browser in the same way as it is rendered in directly with the CSS applied directly on the XML document. So the current architecture looks like this. We have Oxygen on the server side. You can plug in all the configuration that we have for dogbook, for data, for any XML document. You may not have a special configuration, just an XML and a CSS that will also work. You will get that also in the web application. And you can also have plugins, and for instance, the plugins that connect Oxygen to a CMS. So if you connect Oxygen to a repository, you should be able to use the same mechanism to access and load, save files. So the advantages of this approach are that we reuse almost all the existing support that we already developed. Even custom actions that you define in Oxygen, in the Oxygen author mode, can be triggered on the web. The validation also runs on the server, where we have all the validation engines available, so we do not actually need to port them to JavaScript. The processing on the client side is quite minimal, so this approach is battery friendly. Having the model on the server, there's a potential for collaborative editing. So you can have two people share the same model and see, maybe what they are doing in the same time. As you have now in Google Docs, for instance, when you edit the same document. And as I mentioned, reusing plugins that connect to different repositories. The disadvantages of this approach is that HTML, JavaScript, browser is not at least is not my ideal development platform. As we go to all the corner cases, we get into all possible issues. And there's a lot of difference between each browser on each platform and so on. So it's a lot of work to work around the issues and try to find solutions to make it actually work. Oh. Okay, you've seen the demo. I just want to show you just one more document. And we also leverage device-specific input methods like speech recognition and handwritten recognition. And I have a video that I will not play now, but I will post it later, where you can see, you can enter with content with speech recognition or writing on my Android phone. And this works not only on mobile devices, it works also on my TV. I have a video also with that on laptop, desktop, and any device. Our plans for the future is to release it first. We hope to do that in May. And then use it for some XML based application for a weblog maybe, for a wiki-like website that has dogbook or a simplified dogbook behind it, for instance. Integrated with Google Drive or Dropbox, so you can have new dogbook, new data in your Google Drive as actions. Explore different ways for the user interface, and maybe create hybrid applications. And before the questions, I want to show you this cool plugin that we have. Basically, this allows you to open any file in Oxygen, and you just scan that on your iPad, and it's moved to your iPad. So this plugin opens a Tomcat server, and is configured with whatever we have in Oxygen as frameworks, and it gives you a URL to the current file. So then you can scan it and you can quickly test, any file. And as I said, I just want to show you one file. Which is a very simple interface for data. Let me try to scan this. So I hope the network is connected. It should run quite fast. Well, the idea is that you can also test this, if you say open, you get this in the browser, and you have here the custom actions that allow you to add another section or to remove a section and so on, right? But you can access them on, you need to have the network connection working between these two. Yeah, now I have it here. Okay, so basically we have this, this is for the data entry scenario where you can just enter information and then you just can type to execute actions and so on. Okay, so
Thanks.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we have no time for questions actually, so please, if you have questions for George or his team, please go upstairs during the next coffee break or talk to him during the lunch, because we need to go ahead with the next presentation.